In this fifth video of the rhythm unit, we will be introduced to the concept of 16th notes. 16th notes will simply be us continuing the pattern that we have already seen with the introduction of eighth notes. Remember, as we keep going to smaller note values, we simply add more onto the symbol. At this point, we don't have many options left. So when we introduce the 16th note, all we can simply do is add a second flag. There are even values smaller than 16th notes, like 32nd notes and 64th notes, but generally, 16th notes will be the smallest values that we encounter in music. The beats that you see here marked in blue, I should remind you, are only applicable to common meter. If the meter was in 6/8 time or 2/2 time, those values would change according to the meter's rules. However, since common meter 4/4 time is the most common, what we see here in red is true, that we would need 16 16th notes to equal a full measure, or 4 16th notes to equal a beat. Like we saw previously with the eighth notes, we will typically use beams to show beat groupings. While we only need 2 eighth notes to form a beat, we would need 4 16th notes to form a beat. And to make sure that there is no confusion between eighth notes and 16th notes, notice that there are now 2 beams, just like individually there are 2 flags on a 16th note value. It is possible for there to be a mixture of eighth notes and 16th notes beamed together, as you see in that bottom example on the right-hand side. The most common groupings that we will see, however, are groups of 4. And here you can see just how we would count 16th notes. We would still use 1 to start, and we would still use "and" for the second part of the beat, but now we have 2 additional values that need to be filled in, which we use the letters E and A, or pronounced So reading this rhythm would be 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. With the addition of 16th notes, there are many variations now to show a single beat of music. Of these variations, the top row is the most common, with letters D, E, and F being found most prevalent in printed music. Now that we have talked about all of the note values that we typically see in music, just wanted to remind you about the note symbols and the relationship that we see as we get smaller and smaller. When it comes to rest symbols, there is not a clear relationship, but you'll remember from previous videos that a whole rest looks like a hole in the ground, that a half rest looks like a hat, that a quarter rest looks like a lightning bolt or Z with a C, and in the case of the eighth rests and 16th rests, once again, notice their similarities just like the notes above. For the 16th rest, think of it as a 7 with 2 dots and a dash. Once again, the values that we see relate to common meter, and please don't forget that should we see a dotted value, that we add half of the original symbol's value onto it. In our next video, we will be examining the concept of tempo.